Our boys are joining the boys.
Cowboys training camp, live from Oxnard, California.
Welcome back to the Blitz here on San Antonio Sports Star, ESPN AM 1250 and 94.5 FM. I'm Jason Minnix as we continue our Cowboys training camp coverage brought to you by AA Best Bail Bonds. Joined now by Mickey Spagnola from DallasCowboys.com. Mickey, man, thanks for stopping by. I know if somebody's watching on our Facebook Live or YouTube, we are sitting at the same table.
Yes.
But with socially distant things now.
We're safe.
We've got to be at the other end.
That's funny.
I mean, we had Jerry Jones. It was the same thing yesterday.
So where did Jerry sit where I'm sitting?
He is sitting right where.
Or did he have to be on the other side of the fence?
He was allowed to be on this side of the fence, and he could sit there. And then it was, it's Jerry, right? So we know what the rules are coming in, and then of course he wants to come in, shake hands, and are we breaking? It just and there is that weird sense to everything, isn't there?
Yeah, no, there is, and not as weird as it was last year, right? So it's a little bit better this year, but there's still some restrictions that we got to follow. The players got to follow. The team has to follow. The other day they had a couple people from the NFL come in here to check things out to see how they were running and making sure the Cowboys were following all the protocols, because there's not very many teams that are doing this away from their home facility.
Four of them.
Right? Yeah. And two of them are going right now. So the NFL didn't have anything else to pay attention to except the Steelers and the Cowboys. So they were being very careful on everything, making sure they were doing things right.
And one of the things that they did is make sure all the media gets their steps in daily.
Yes.
I can tell you, Rob Thompson's watch wondered who stole it, man, because who is this?
Yeah, a lot of walking. And for us, too, because we're, all but 2 or 3 of people in our department, and that includes the internet, television, they're tier 2, so they can go through here like we're used to going through. The rest of us all the way around. So they want to, I guess, keep us. I don't know if they're trying to keep us away from the players or keeping the players away from us.
It might be a combination of both. And you think about getting everybody vaccinated,
right?
And I know obviously Jerry wants to see that happen. I assume Mike McCarthy wants to see all of it. If he can't get 100%, there's that 85% number, but people want to exceed that. And you got to figure if the teams that are better on the vaccination rates, less risk that they're going to lose players for X number of games. And so there is a competitive advantage for having a team that's fully vaccinated. I don't know if you heard Ron Rivera earlier today talking about the frustration he is dealing with because of the Washington football team's low vaccination numbers. And I don't know where they are, but Ron Rivera certainly doesn't sound happy.
I am. I'm truly frustrated. I'm beyond frustrated, and part of it is, and the reason I walked in with the mask on is, I'm immune deficient. Okay, so with this new variant, who knows? So when I'm in a group and the group's not vaccinated or there's a mixture, I put the mask on, and I do that, for health reasons, because nobody really knows. And so I have to do that. And I just wish and I hope that our guys can understand that.
Are you surprised, Mickey, that throughout the league, with the NFL can't force players to get vaccinated, but they've certainly made it very uncomfortable for them not to be, that more and more guys haven't just followed the science?
I'm shocked because, and I think Michael Irvin said it best when he found out that the Cowboys weren't more than 60 or 70% of the players vaccinated. And he said, aren't you trying to do everything you can do to make this team successful? And if you're not getting vaccinated, then you're not all in. And I don't, and he didn't need to be politically correct, right?
Sure.
And Ron Rivera, that's the first time I've seen a coach not straddle the line. Mike McCarthy has said, yeah, we want to do this, we want to get this, but it's a personal decision. And so they can't really mandate it, right? But they sure can can suggest it, because I don't know if you've talked about all the things that the guys that are unvaccinated have to go through, like getting tested every morning. They can't leave the facility here. They can't have friends come visit them in the front. They have to eat in their rooms. They got to do grab and go. There's just enough things that are kind of a nuisance that you would think it's enough incentive to run down to CVS right now and get vaccinated, right? And I heard Michael Gallup. They asked him, "Have you been vaccinated?" And he said, "Yeah." He didn't hesitate, right? He didn't give no HIPAA stuff or anything. And somebody said, "Well, what was your motivation?" And he goes, "When I play a game, I like to afterwards be able to be with my family and friends. And that was incentive enough for me to get vaccinated." So it had nothing to do with the science or keeping himself safe. He wanted to be able to do the things that he normally does during the week and after games. And you would think that's the way everybody would think, but no, not quite so much.
And it's not. And, I think about what Zeke said. Yeah, he was vaccinated, but he grew up in a family where they didn't believe in vaccinations. He dealt with COVID last year. Is not going to be a reason they have to miss games or whatever. Dak didn't want to answer the questions and cited HIPAA. And here I'm thinking, you're the leader of this football team. You are the leader.
But what he tells us and what he tells them could be two different things.
Absolutely.
Right? And this stuff about citing the HIPAA is that whoever's got the results of the vaccine can't out you. You could out yourself.
Well, that's it. But I'm thinking, I get an injury report every day.
Well, just think and just think about what these guys go through to keep themselves healthy or to keep themselves on the field, right? They'll take a shot, right? That deadens something so they can go play.
Numb it up, let's go.
They ain't worried about that, right? So I don't know how this is different, because I think when we all start school, we got vaccinated, and there was no argument about it. There was no political side or for or against. I don't understand it. All I know is I was old enough to be kind of first in line to get it, and I raised my hand and said, absolutely.
Mickey Spagnola from DallasCowboys.com with us here on the Blitz on San Antonio Sports Star, ESPN AM 1250 and 94.5 FM. Pads go on tomorrow. You've been out here since day one. We got out here Sunday, got to watch a solid walkthrough today, the last one without pads. Well, it was full practice.
Yeah.
Walk through later just for the technical term of things. Mike McCarthy said today, we've looked really good in the underwear. Pads go on tomorrow. What do you expect to see different tomorrow?
Oh, I thought today the competition towards the end of practice really went up. And I would imagine it goes up even more tomorrow when the pads come on, because, you can't hit anybody. The offensive linemen, defensive linemen can't do what they do, right? I think coming into this, I always thought this was going to be a very competitive training camp, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And I think we're starting to see that, right, where some guy steps up today, another guy the next day, the day before. But now, can you be consistent once the pads come on? But I think that you'll see the competition ramp up. And when you're practicing against everybody and you're practicing against your friends, don't you try harder almost, right? No, my buddy's not beating me, right? And so, I think the competition escalates.
When you look at the defensive side of things, Malik Hooker, that signing was made official today. We saw him on the practice field wearing jersey number 28. I don't know if he'll be able to go tomorrow and what the process is. He's passed all the COVID protocols, but the rehab part coming off the Achilles injury, the fact that he came in for a visit in March and they didn't sign him and he was still available to get signed now, tells me that either he couldn't find a job, or in March they said, when you can pass the physical, we will sign you. Maybe they had a gentleman's agreement. But what does the addition of Malik Hooker mean to this Cowboys defense if he can be the Malik Hooker prior to injury?
Yeah, and I think you're right on both accounts on why they didn't sign him in the first place was because he wasn't – he tore it in, I believe it was September 20th. So I guarantee you, and I can speak from experience, that he wasn't ready in March or April to go out there and show him that he could still play football. That's too soon. You need almost a year. And so now he's ready, but it also speaks volumes of, well, did anybody else want to take a look at him? Because the Cowboys let him walk away, or he walked away from them back then. And I'm sure at this point, when they're so snug against the salary cap, they didn't have to buy him, buy him out like, oh, okay, we're going to offer you this. It's probably, you're going to get this. Do you want it or not? Because it's July 27th and you don't have a job. And there's 31 other teams out there that got 90 guys on their roster. Do the math, and you're probably the 2,000th person out there, right? You're available. So we'll see what he can do. I don't think they signed him because they were already worried about the safety position with all the guys they did bring in, but they brought in everybody on a 1-year deal. And if it was a 2-year deal, they had the option on the second year. So from a salary cap standpoint, if it doesn't work out, they can take out the eraser and say, you charge us the signing bonus and we'll go on. So I think what it does is adds to the competition at the safety position, but alongside, if this guy's as talented as he was when he was starting for the Colts, then you bring him in and take a look at him and let's see. Because, last year, remember, they brought in Clinton Dix, and everybody was, Clinton Dix. And he didn't last a week working with the first team and then didn't make it through training camp.
And that was actually, I was going to say, should I compare this to a signing, like hold your excitement and temper expectations until we actually see him on the field? Or is he just by nature further along and probably going to be more of an impactful guy? Like for that opener against Tampa Bay, could he be, or what percentage would you say he would be the starting safety?
Yeah, and I think at this point, no more than 50-50, because they signed DeMonte KZ, who, by the way, had a pick today in practice that took to the house.
Yep.
It was almost like, don't be bringing in no hooker, right?
Yeah.
And then also in practice, Maurice Kennedy was replacing Jordan Lewis in the slot, and he had a pick and a breakup, and it was almost like, okay, Jordan, don't be sitting out too many days because somebody might take your spot. And I would imagine if you can play in the slot, you might be able to play safety. And then they signed Jaron Kearse, who's been working with the first team. Donovan Wilson started last year. They drafted a safety. What was it, in the fifth round? Makwamu. So, again, he's not walking in and just saying, hey, I'm Malik Cooker, and I've got the starting free safety spot.
And Kennedy, 31?
Kennedy.
He flashed today.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
Like a kid out of Virginia. Look, now granted, pads aren't
and he
on
was
yet,
a guy, and he was a guy that opted out last year. His wife was pregnant. She was about a month away from giving birth to their son, and he decided, for family reasons, he said that, I decided to opt out.
Mickey Spagnola from DallasCowboys.com with us live out here in Oxnard as we're on the tennis courts. They had their morning practice a couple hours ago. Everything here is different, from what we were used to. Yes, the routine, the layout, everything. So when I say morning practice, it kind of starts in the morning,
right?
Kind of, but it is very different. They do a walkthrough in the afternoon that media is not allowed to watch, which is very different. I asked Jerry Jones yesterday, last year we didn't come to training camp. Nobody did. And, we had Mike McCarthy on the phone every week, but, because of COVID, I didn't know what to expect from Mike McCarthy watching his practices and stuff. I'm surprised at the secrecy that he likes to operate under.
Yeah.
I mean, it in some ways reminds me of when we would go to Texans training camp when Bill O'Brien took over from Gary Kubiak. But Jerry loves the show. He loves having the media here. How is it the compromise between the two? Mike McCarthy's idea of the way practice and exposure should be versus Jerry's?
Well, I think that from a practice standpoint, he has no problem with us watching the real practice. I mean, even last year, when they did what he doesn't call it a walkthrough, he calls it a mock game. And they would be indoors at Ford Center, and we couldn't watch it. No, the media weren't allowed to watch it. So it's the same thing this year. I think he feels like that's private time, what they do, and it's more of a review, and it's almost like sneaking in on the classroom, right? And peeking in. So, but from I was told when he got here, we did. Middle of January, probably 2 weeks after he got hired, he did a big discussion with the reporters that covered the team on a daily basis. There was probably 14 of us in a conference room, and he sat at the head of the table, and we went around, introduced ourselves, and that was the last time until like 2 days before Thanksgiving that I actually saw him in person. Because all the Zoom, and we never got to be around him, right? And
your office is there,
right?
Although I guess you probably weren't even going in, right?
No, we started going in the end of July when training camp started, but we weren't allowed on that side of the building, right? We were kind of quarantined into our own space, and he was pretty protective on the Zoom calls. But then when you get to know him, he kind of loosened up. And you heard him today, when Todd asked him the question, I forgot exactly what it was. He goes, Todd, I can't give you everything, right? and I thought it was pretty funny. But he's loosened up quite a bit. I was told after we had that discussion with him in January of last year, I said, gosh, he was pretty good. And then he hung around and just shot the bull with us for an hour. And I was told, yeah, but the people I've talked to in Green Bay, that's not the way he is in the season. He doesn't like to give anything up. So he's kind of old school.
And again, I understand coaches are the way they are. I remember telling Jason Garrett one time that, why can't you act like this on the radio? Don't be so robotic, right? Or at the podium. Because if you got to know Jason watching him in practice or just talking,
you want to go to a ball game with him,
completely
right?
different guy.
Drink a beer with him. Yeah,
that he never lost his locker room. He just doesn't come across that way with media. I'm curious if you've kind of found the same with Mike McCarthy, although I think he's much better with the media.
He's been a little bit more revealing, but the closer you get to the season, the more he pulls back. So yeah, he's not going to give you much on an injury report. There's a reason he does the press conference before practice, not after, right?
Yeah.
And then you got to wait till the next day to remember, okay, now there was something happened in practice I need to know about, and you got to ask him the afterwards. Because you know what? When we were in San Antonio and Parcells was the head coach, he would do his press conference after the morning practice. If I remember, I think it was before the morning practice. And then after the afternoon practice, there was no talking to him, right? And everybody thought Bill was great because Bill would go out on these tangents and tell all these stories and everybody's laughing. But he didn't tell us anything about the team. He wouldn't reveal anything, right? And that's the way it was. And I'll give you the first year he was there, and we're in San Antonio. And I'm walking underneath in the Alamo Dome where our offices were, and I was going past the locker room, and the team was already on the field for the afternoon practice, right? And Larry Allen's in the locker room still. And it's like, oh, Larry's not practicing, right? And I didn't know if they had butted heads or whatever. And so after the practice was over, Bill was walking out the field, and he was going under one of those little exits under the stands that got into the balls. And I kind of sauntered over there, and I said, Bill, I said, Larry Allen not practicing today. And he didn't break stride or even recognize my presence, right? And he kept walking, and I said, Bill, I said, are you upset that Larry's not practicing today? He turned around, and in so many words that I'll clean up for you, he told me, you're not supposed to be talking to me after this practice. And he stomped off. And I said to myself, well, I think I got my answer, right?
Yes, you did.
So the next day, I'm sitting in the aisle in the room where he did his press conference, and he had to walk right by me to get to the podium. And he gets right by me, he sneers, and he goes, "Oh, there's the nose." And I go, "What do you mean by that?" And he goes, "You're always nosing in everybody else's business." And I said, "Bill, that's my job, right? I'm supposed to know what's going on." And after that, we got along famously. But if you allowed him to bully you, you were done. But if you stood your ground and got back at him, he loved it. It's almost like he lived for that, right? And so, but that's the way he was. But he got in there, and he had all the funny stories to tell. But he was sitting on that table like it was talking to your granddad, right? But there was a clock up on a thing on the ceiling, and he knew when his 20 minutes was up, right? And then he'd end story time with Bill.
Well, that's it. Tell stories. Don't ask questions. I'll take you guys on a tangent.
Yes.
He controlled everything.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, all of it, which the good coaches tend to do. Mickey Spagnola from DallasCowboys.com joining us here on the Blitz. As we look back at this team, we talked earlier about the pads going on tomorrow. We figured the competition is going to be raised up. Was it because they were off yesterday, or knowing the pads are coming on, there was some enthusiasm, some energy that, quite frankly, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago at practice, you don't see in these kind of practices, the speed, the urgency from rep to rep?
I think one of and I don't know that this happened, but I'm guessing it might have. When you have an off day like that and the guys they're off, there's no meetings, nothing, right? And then you got to get back in the swing of things. And a lot of times it's like the rest of us, Mondays aren't great if you get Saturday and Sunday off. It takes you a while to get back in the swing of things. And I think the coaches, knowing that about people, take a week off. What's the Monday like after your week off?
Sucks,
right? Yeah. And so I would imagine they ramped up what they were saying in their meetings before the practice. They ramped up the emotion to make sure that they weren't lethargic coming off that day off. And they created more competitive situations. Hey, it's 3rd and 5, 13 seconds to go. You got one timeout. You're on the 15-yard line. You got to score a touchdown to tie the game. And they had all those different little scenarios like that to put them in. And suddenly the competition went, woo, let's go. And they were yakking at each other at one play. The second team offense was there. I think DiNucci was at quarterback. Something happened, and Dak's yelling at the defense, the guys on the sideline, and they were going back and forth. That's what you want, and that's what you need. And they're only in helmets, jerseys, and shorts, right? So now when the pads come on, I'm thinking tomorrow, all right, let's see what goes on.
It's going to be fun. A lot of chirping for sure,
yes.
and a lot of energy. Dan Quinn, I don't know how many monsters he has before he goes out there for practice, but seems like more than one, or 8 cups of coffee or whatever it might be. Too early to tell, but what are the biggest differences you've seen from the defensive side?
First difference is it looks like they're more organized. Guys understand what their responsibilities are. I think today was the first time in team period that I saw a busted coverage or two, because there has been very few mistakes. And if you look back at the season last year, they were terrible on defense. Oh. But a lot of their problems were busted coverages. They just didn't know their assignments, or they were confused. Yeah, the communication looks a lot better so far. Now, the tight end, it was Jarwin first and then Schultz. And when they were in team, they ended up wide open for touchdowns from in the red zone. And I saw the two linebackers looking at each other like, was that you or is that me? I think it was you. And the guy, no, I think it was you, right? And so they were confused. But other than that, they've been pretty sharp on assignment. And so that, number one. Number two, I think he's done a better job of putting guys in situations where they can succeed. I thought last year moving Leighton Vander Esch from the outside to inside was wrong. Jalen Smith is not a weak side linebacker. He can't run well enough to do that. So he's got guys in better positions, and he's not afraid to play young guys either, by the way. If you earn the spot, you're in there. It's not like deference to the veteran guy. And the other thing I've noticed is that he's trying to play more matchup defense. He wants to put personnel on the field to match what the offense is doing. So it's almost like basketball. Okay, I need a guy to guard that guy. Well, you're in the game, right? Well, same thing going on here. And then that's how he answered the question. You've got it's seemingly depth on defense. How are you going to get all these guys on the field? And his answer is basically, we're going to play a lot of different personnel groups, and that'll allow more guys to get involved. So I've seen that. And then you're right about his enthusiasm. Give you a quick story from the rookie mini camp. When you don't have enough guys to facilitate 11 on offense, 11 on defense, right? So at one point on defense, Quinton Bohanna, their 6th round draft choice, the defensive tackle, who is large, by the way, 6'4", 330, and he moves like a tight end. He got dinged and he came out, and they kind of looked around and they didn't have another defensive tackle. So Quinn turned his hat backwards and went out and lined up as the defensive tackle, right? And he played for 2 plays, and then Bohannon walks in and taps out the coach. He goes, nice. Coach, I got this.
Look, man, it's rookie minicamp. You can't
right?
Can't miss time here. No. It's now a job, that is for sure. Mickey Spagnola from DallasCowboys.com. Always fun catching up with you. I know we do it randomly throughout the year and here at training camp. We need to do this every week.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
and sounds like we might, right?
I think we are.
You can might arrange that.
Yeah, I think we could do that. Now with all the different changes we've had at the radio station, we need to make that happen.
Okay, well, I'll be glad to do it. And I learned back from when we went to training camp in San Antonio, and I never understood, like, Jerry, what are we going to San Antonio for? And he understood, and I found out the amount of Cowboy fans in San Antonio. So it'll be great to be with them during the season.
Jerry, last time we had Jerry on the show was the first year Dat Win was co-hosting with me, and we were out here, and he said then that there are more Cowboy fans in San Antonio per capita than in the Metroplex. And I asked him about that yesterday because he was talking about some numbers. He said that's still true. When you think about per capita, this is Dallas Cowboy country. I mean, there's a reason we've wrapped ourselves in the star as San Antonio Sports Star with our rebranding. I mean, it is Dallas Cowboy country for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and I know I found it out when I was there for training camp, and even though we were sequestered in the Alamo Dome, it might have been 72 degrees, but we didn't see the sun. Right?
I was mad when they first left the dome. Now, I remember when, we tried putting fake grass in the parking lot. And Emmitt Smith was like, the hell with this. We're not doing that. They didn't.
I don't think they made it a half hour. And I remember asking somebody, is this going to work? Oh, yeah. The guy said he can grow grass in the parking lot. Well, he did grow grass.
It did, yeah,
but it wasn't grass you could play on.
Emmitt wasn't. I mean, I remember Emmitt walked out there and was like, we're not doing this.
We're out of here.
As great as it was for the city.
Right.
I was mad when they left until I came out here, and not because it's a great week for us on a business trip, but when you come to this facility and those 2 football fields that are out there and everything that goes in it, this just makes perfect sense. It was like this whole complex was built just for that. It has turned into that, but the footprint would be what you would design if you were going, all right, if we need a place to go. And then, of course, the weather and everything else that comes along with it. And there might be a couple of Cowboy fans out here in California, too.
There are a few Cowboy fans out here. And the Cowboys had figured it out long time ago. I think it was 63 on. They were in Thousand Oaks, which is about 20 minutes up the road. On the 101.
But somehow 30 degrees warmer.
Yes, it was much warmer because there wasn't the breeze coming off the ocean, right? We're 3 miles from the ocean. Well, I remember, so we'd be in Thousand Oaks when I first got there starting to do training camp, and they were going to come here to practice against the Raiders. So the Raiders found this place, and the fields were there. The hotel was different. It wasn't the Residence Inn. It was kind of a 5-story hotel, but they practice here. So we came the first time I did it, and Al Davis had like 8-foot fence around the whole practice field, and he had the black windscreen so you couldn't see through. And we showed up in our T-shirts and shorts, and it was an afternoon practice, and all of a sudden the marine layer came in, and now what we were used to mid-80s, all of a sudden it's 60 degrees, and we're freezing our little heinies off, right? And but But when the Cowboys came back, it changed. It was a hotel. So if people don't know, we walk 50 yards that way and you're in your room. You go 50 yards the other way, you're on the practice field. The locker room's right behind us. The weight room's right behind. It's just so convenient. And it's 72 degrees. And when you woke up this morning, or when I woke up, it was 63 degrees. Mm-hmm. And it's like your biggest decision usually every day is short sleeves or long sleeves in the morning.
It's the idea that, all right, I'm shorts and short sleeve now. Have a hoodie ready to go.
Yes,
because you're going to need it all throughout the day. I mean, I bring a lot of clothes out here because throughout the day the seasons seem to change.
And then even yesterday, and it never happens, right? It rained.
It rained.
And it's like it's not supposed to rain in Southern California. I think I heard that song.
It is not. Mickey Spagnola from DallasCowboys.com. Always appreciate the time. We'll do it again on a weekly throughout the NFL season.
All righty. Thanks, Jason.
As we continue on the Blitz here at Cowboys at training camp,